Yes, Global Witness is an NGO based in London, and we look at the links between natural resources and corruption, trying to break those links. Obviously, Central Asia is an area very rich in these resources. We publish reports on our investigations, some of which I put at the top there. Hopefully, you've got some copies. I think the point I'd like to make is that we have to stop trying to prevent Europe's facilitation of corruption, either directly or indirectly. Two brief examples. Turkmenistan's state accounts are held in Deutsche Bank in Frankfurt. The bank has said that these are state accounts, but anyone who knows the country, the power of the first president Niyazov and the current president Berdimuhamedov, knows that these people can use this money for their own ends. And in the case of Niyazov, we know that many of the famous golden statues and the palaces were financed by these accounts at Deutsche Bank. There's been a lot of talk recently, obviously, about Gaddafi's money in the European Union, Mubarak's assets, but these questions are too late. It's no good freezing these assets now. These regimes have been propped up by this money for numerous years. Second example, as Irina mentioned, we have on our prestigious FTSE 100 stock exchange share index in London. We have two Kazakh-based companies, ENRC, who've been involved in various scandals recently, including one in Congo, and more recently the ousting of various independent directors who are raising too many pesky questions about good governance. And also Kazakhmys PLC, a company. If you ask anybody outside of the government in Kazakhstan, taxi driver or shopkeeper will tell you it's Mr. Nazarbayev's. We haven't proven that, but as our reports have shown, the company says that over 20% of the shares are held by the chairman. We've shown that these shares are actually held in a trust in Liechtenstein, whose beneficiaries are not publicly known. We've gone to them and said, well, you're a public company now. Please prove that these shares are actually owned by the chairman, and they've refused to do so. So our financial institutions are facilitating this kind of money-making machine we've heard so much about today. So what can we do as the EU and as individual nations to prevent this kind of thing? Well, in the oil and gas industry, brief history, 10 years ago, the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative was launched, which is a voluntary scheme that brings together companies, governments and civil society and allows for the reporting of revenues from oil and gas companies, the revenues they pay to governments. And Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan are members of this initiative. The problem with EITI, even though it is a strong initiative which does release some good information about how much money is flowing to governments, it is a voluntary scheme, and often we see interference from governments. So the next step, which was initiated last year by the United States as part of their financial reform bill called Dodd-Frank, they put these provisions into law, which means now that any company regulated by the SEC in the United States, any oil and gas company, oil and gas mining companies, they have to publish the revenues they are paying to foreign governments. There is a movement in the European Union to bring this here. President Barroso of the Commission has supported this, and various figures, President Sarkozy, George Osborne, the Chancellor of the United Kingdom, has also said that we'd like to see EU-wide legislation in this regard, and we need this as soon as possible. But this, of course, is only half the story. This is only revenues going to these governments. We need to do more, for example, on licensing. Companies are often forced or voluntarily strike deals with local partners in product sharing agreements. These local partners often have shareholders in the British Virgin Islands, and that often suggests government officials or oligarchs. The UK bribery bill is coming into force. This has been a controversial bill, but I think a very necessary one. This means that it will now be illegal to pay a bribe to any foreign official, and also that companies must show that they are actively preventing bribery. It's no good just to say, well, this was just one rogue employee and we didn't know about it. and I think the whole of the European Union should create a new standard regarding bribery. These ideas are not just, I think, morally good, they're good for business. Some companies will try to tell you otherwise, but bribery is not a good thing. Maybe in short term it gets things done, but in the long term I think it only leads to very corrupt systems which are destined to fail. As has been said, we need to support civil society, not just financially but also by speaking out. There have been many examples in the region where strong words of criticism have led to certain human rights campaigners being released. We mustn't let, as Jeffrey said also, that mustn't let our oil and gas deals compromise our morals. The Commission and the Council often try to put business to one side, but it's inextricably linked, I think, with human rights. The Commission also likes to say, well, we've tried isolation, this doesn't work, but we have to show, the Commission has to show how engagement works, how what is the plan of trying to get these governments to improve their standards in human rights and the level of democracy. Azerbaijan, as Jackie mentioned, the EU has been engaged for many years there, but the situation is deteriorating. In 2003 it was ranked by Freedom House as partly free, it's now ranked as not free. Currently in the European Union we are debating a partnership and cooperation agreement with Turkmenistan without any substantial changes by Turkmenistan on human rights, good governance. I believe the delegation that went there recently, please correct me if I'm wrong, they were treated quite dismissively, they weren't given access to prisons. They behaved not like how a partner of the EU should behave. So in conclusion, I would say that we just have to use these points of leverage better to affect change. We have to see some changes in these countries before we strike these gas deals, before we strike these agreements. Else we'll continue to see countries like Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan grow more powerful and continue to act with impunity. Thank you.